said when he read the book, he looked therein and he saw Lamentations mourning and woe. He didn't get a message of prosperity, a message of rest, a message of sowing and reaping, prosperity. But he saw that, hey, it's going to be mass destruction, famine, you know, sedition among men, so on and so forth, right? But it's not a message of peace and safety, right? But he said, one time, Revelation 19:10, I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Worship God, for the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy, right? So the Lord's true servants, that's what they come out to do. Not give a feel-good message, not tell people what they want to hear, but tell them what's necessary for them to obtain salvation and to escape this impending destruction. This is Noah's ministry. This is Ezekiel's ministry. This is what they were doing, going to the captives of their nation, wherever they were relegated to, and telling them that, hey, you actually can be brought back into the commonwealth. You've been separated by your deeds, right? But through repentance and faith in Yahweh Shai, hey, this is the ministry of reconciliation. This is the labor that I've been to, right? Let me bring this out in the book of Zephaniah 1:14, right? This is the book of Zephaniah, chapter 1, verse 14, as it pertains to destruction. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteneth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, right? It said a day of clouds and a day of thick darkness, right? But this is talking about destruction. World War III. Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed for what is done to the Lord's people, the apple of the Most High's eye, as well as to the nations that are round about, right? In the book of Revelation, it talks about the beast shall hate the whore, and that whore represents Babylon the Great, America, right? And America is spread its influence, its doctrine, its democracy, its women liberation, its LGBTQ agenda across the whole earth. And now these nations are mad that their sons are choosing a death style. Their women feel liberated to buck up and usurp their authority against the man. The land is languishing. The ecosystem, their waters, their land, their air, it's all been destroyed and polluted. Why? Because y'all wanted to make a deal and a covenant with death, right? And now they realize that they have the shitty end of the stick. They've agreed to a very janky contract with the so-called white man, Esau Edom, and the revived Roman Empire, right? Because, hey, with Alexander the Great coming back into prominence, hey, that's when Rome, you know, the beast's deadly wound was healed. And now you have the spiritual head of the Roman Empire, the revived Roman Empire being what? The Vatican. The financial arm of the revived Roman Empire being what? London. And then you have the military arm of the revived Roman Empire being Babylon the Great. You know, with this robust military that threatens people, you know, to be bombed into the Stone Age, right? That's what makes Babylon great, right? It's vast, robust military arsenal and their ability to, you know, be merciless. But the Bible says that these weak nations that have been bullied by America, that have been manhandled and tossed around by America through its policies, embargoes, tariffs, schools that it sets up, America wants to demonize their leaders in the media before they assassinate them. It said, hey, that the nations are mad right? The nations they have drank, they've laid down in bed with America. Now they're getting up with fleas and they're angry. And the weak are gonna say, I am strong. This is what's happening in the earth right now. You have different proxy wars on the chessboard of battle. You have different nations allying with different nations. You have nations positioning themselves for the inevitable, which is World War III, right? Let me bring this out one more time in the book of Zephaniah, chapter 1. And this is verses 14. Zephaniah 1 and 14 reads, the great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteneth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, right? A day of clouds and thick darkness, right? Like it says in the book of Malachi 4 and 1, it said the day will come that shall burn as an oven, right? And that's representative of thermonuclear annihilation. How you doing, Mr. White Man? This is Ezekiel chapter 30, verse 3, and it reads, for the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. It shall be the time of the heathen, right? It said that the time is near, right? Let me hold my camera before it tips over. It's getting kind of windy out here. Hey, that's the prince of the power of the air. You see these Edomites who was walking by, look like they some Ukrainian immigrants or some shit. And I was gonna engage them, but you know, everything is done according to the Most High's time and season. Cause hey, it's nothing like declaring to the so-called white man that he's not white. They walk around knowing that they're not supreme, but when they, you know, come across us, we actually bring forth the understanding that you are not supreme. Right? White supremacy is a lie and a misnomer, right? But red supremacy is more in line with the scriptures, right? Red supremacy is said that anybody that touches Cain will be judged sevenfold. So white privilege, so-called red privilege, is actually a thing in the Bible. But the Bible doesn't speak about white people except for in Leviticus 13 and 30, when it speaks about being clean lepers. You know, the physical curse of leprosy. Clean lepers is, you know, what's referred to as white in the scripture. Everybody knows what happened to Moses' sister that murmured against him, right? She was stricken with that physical plague of leprosy, right? But the Bible calls them red, right? Going back to their forefather, their patriarch Esau Edom, right? Let me jump back to Ezekiel chapter 30 and verse 3. This is Ezekiel chapter 30 and verse 3. Just staying in theme with the destruction. The third woe is coming, right? Just like Esau's elite, how they're measuring the time on the left-hand side with their doomsday clock. Hey, the Lord's elect, his prophets, his servants. We're doing the same thing on the right-hand side. Just like they said that this conflict in Ukraine with Russia has brought that time closer to destruction. Hey, you don't need a doomsday clock to tell you that, hey, the day is gonna come where America is gonna be hit with thermonuclear annihilation. It says that in the book of Isaiah 13. This place won't be inhabited again, similar to Chernobyl. The radiation and the fire is gonna purify and cleanse this place to the point where it won't be inhabited again, but rather it's just gonna be a memorial. Similar to those pyramids in ancient Egypt, where people are sitting back and speculating and pontificating on what those pyramids were, what were they used for, how were they constructed. But one thing for sure, it represents a society that is past. those tombs, people are going towards in them, but they're not inhabited anymore. It's pretty much a monument to what happens when a society is wicked and you oppress the Lord's people, right? This is going to be the same fate of America, Babylon the Great, right? Ezekiel 30:3 says, for the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. It shall be the time of the heathen. And the sword shall come upon Egypt, and a great pain shall be in Ethiopia, when the slain shall fall away in Egypt, and they shall take away her multitude, and her foundation shall be broken. Right? I believe this Zephaniah 2:12 says, woe to the Ethiopians, right? In the book of Exodus 20:2 calls Egypt a house of bondage. It says the same thing in 1 Kings 8:51. It refers to Egypt as a furnace of iron, right? So that new Egypt, where we have had to serve a new round of captivity, is going to face the same fate as the old Egypt, right? Let me bring this out one more time. Ezekiel 30:3 reads, for the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. It shall be the time of the heathen, right? Because the Most High has not forgot about these heathen that are round about, that is constantly afflicted, oppressed, and subjugated his people, right? Let me bring this out in the book of Revelations, chapter 11 and verse 14, right? This is Revelations 11:14 as it pertains to judgment. How you doing, brother? It reads, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Right? It said the second woe is past. Everyone knows that, you know, during World War II, Jake, even over here in America, were liberators of those people that call themselves Jews that and are not, written of in Revelations 2:9, Revelations 3:9. But that represented the end of World War II, right? When all these different nations went up against Germany, right? But it's letting you know that, hey, that's not gonna be the last world war, right? America has been involved in many conflicts, but as far as America's been involved in many conflicts, but as far as America being attacked by an outside influence, outside source, that's a lie. Even when you're dealing with 9/11, that was problem, reaction, solution. That was what you call the Hegelian dialectic, right? Synthesis, antithesis, thesis. That's what they did. They already had a pre-designated solution way before they did that controlled demolition. Right? So even if you want to use 9/11 as an example of America being attacked from the outside, you know, 2 Corinthians 2:11 lets you know we're not ignorant of Satan's devices, right? Through that act of bringing those buildings down, you had what implemented? Homeland Security, right? Transportation Security Administration, the Patriot Act. You had all of these different laws and legislations that made this more of a surveillance state to take away people's mobility, to take away people's, you know, rights and privileges, to maneuver throughout this society. Now you have what? The National Security Administration prying in on the citizens of this nation, getting your information and ultimately going to use that information to control you. This is why we come out to tell our people to get their shit together, get their houses in order. Because, hey, let me bring this out in Revelation 12:12. The so-called white man, he has economists, right? He has, you know, wise men of his nation that tells him that the writing is on the wall for America, Babylon the Great. Its economists are telling you that it won't be able to sustain at this rate. America's trillions of dollars in debt, and America, by having this debt-based society, you know, its people are angry because the American dream, they won't be able to obtain it. right? It's becoming a more because in this society, the Lord's people play the role of the poor. And guess what? It's becoming more of a wealth gap between the haves, right? The so-called white man chiefly, Amalek, the chief house of Esau, and these nations round about, they have wealth. But now that wealth gap is being further, it's a gulf, as the scriptures call it, between the Lord's people and the nations that are round about. And like it says in Sirach 11:14, the adversity that the Lord's people are going to have to endure, the Most High is creating these conditions, right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. It reads, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he has but a short time." Right? It said that the devil will come down to you with great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. And that word devil, diablos in the Latin, but it means the accuser of your brethren, going back to Esau, Edom, right? It also means deceiver, right? But it says one more time, Revelation 12:12, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he has but a short time." Right? Just like John 8:44, Yahweh Shai said to those wicked Israelites, "Ye are of your father the devil, the lust of your father ye will do." Right? He was a murderer from the beginning, right? Being Cain. And hey, this is his MO in the earth. This is the man of perdition written of in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Right? He wants to number the people. He wants to have control over the people. He wants to actually control the amount of food that you eat, the amount of carbon dioxide you release from working out, from sex. He wants to actually be God, because in his mind he's godless. Right? It says that in the scriptures and Psalms. It said the fool said in his heart that there's no God. So although there are people on the planet, right? It says in Romans 8:16, the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we're children of God. But 2/3 of our people, as well as the heathen round about, they are godless. Right? They are self-proclaimed anti-theists or atheists. You know, they don't believe in a higher power or creator. When we give credit and we acknowledge our higher power, they say, y'all worshiping a sky daddy. They mock us. They ridicule us. Right? They mock us. They ridicule. Right? And I just quoted a scripture and I wanted to bring it up. They mock us and they ridicule us because the Most High has given us a portion of faith to actually believe in an invisible power. You know, Israel has always required a sign. If they can't see it, touch it, smell it, or hear it, it takes them a hard time grasping onto it. Right? But hey, this is why the Most High requires that we have that humble, contrite, broken spirit. Right? Come as the mind of a child. Right? It says that in 2 Esdras 14:34. Right? If we subdue our own understanding, right, and reform our thoughts, right? So this is the problem with a lot of our people. They're not going to be able to be reformed on this side. 2/3 of them, right? They're prophesied to be cut off and die. Why? Because on this side, they're not going to be able to see the unseen. When we come out here to prophesy, in their mind's eye, they want this society to thrive, and they see themselves joined to it. So they cannot see anything other than this particular captivity. Right? Let me bring this out real quick. I quoted 2 Thessalonians. So let me bring this out. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, in relation to the so-called white man. being godless, right? The elite of so-called Esau being Amalek, this is their MO, right? This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that falling away is us actually going into another round of captivity, circa 70 AD, right? That's the falling away. As it says in Jeremiah 17:4, you shall discontinue from your heritage, right? This is a critical aspect to knowing who we are today. The fact that you don't know who you are is evident that, and a heavy indicator that you are the children of Israel. Because for you to be calling yourselves black, white, red, any of these legal statuses that are misnomers and bywords and proverbs, that's evident, you know, that you fell away from who you truly are as an Israelite from your respective tribe, right? But it's saying that the wicked, written up in Malachi 1 and 3, would not be able to be revealed until we actually had to go through the curses, all the judgments written. He had to go through a time of rulership, as pursuant to Job 9 and 24. It says the earth has been given into the hand of what? Malachi 1 and 3, the wicked, right? The wicked was created for the day of evil, right? So these judgments had to actually roll out, and we have to go through them. All the prophecies written must roll out until the prophecies pertaining to our salvation come to fruition. You have to deal with the prophecies pertaining to destruction. One more time, this is 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that word perdition means destruction. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is a completely godless, right? It said that in Psalms 58 and 3. It said that the wicked are estranged from the womb. Going back to that wicked written up in Malachi 1 and 3, Esau Edom is the border of wickedness. Wherever this so-called white man travels, hurt, harm, terrorism, anguish, suffering follows him. This is why 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3 calls him the man of perdition, the man of destruction. Because in the earth, as pursuant to Isaiah 5 and 20, Isaiah 5 and 20, Psalm 17 and 15, sweet is called bitter, good is called bad. Isaiah 29 and 16 talks about the turning of things upside down, being esteemed as if that's how God made them. Where the so-called white man calls the victims the criminals, when the word criminal actually comes from the root word crimson, which means red, being called red-handed. But the Most High actually gave them the ability to do their devilishment in the earth until what? Their bounds were appointed that they could not pass. And this, at that point, that's when the man of perdition is going to be revealed. Because right now, through the media, in its various forms, paper, cell phone, television, radio, you see who they demonize, who's put as the face of criminality, thefts, you know, child abuse, women abuse. They're going to always put a so-called black, Latino, or Native American in the seat of the demon, of the criminal. Why? Because, hey, this was the Most High's determination, right? And the scriptures say, woe to them that call evil good, that put light for darkness, sweet for bitter. Like it says in Isaiah 5 and 20, Psalm 17 and 15, I don't want to pull it, but this is why the man of perdition has to be revealed. There are people that will actually defend the so-called white man to this day by saying things like, hey, I don't have to worry about the white man in my community. Why, Jake? Because crime is based on proximity. If you lived among the white man, you'll be dealing with all of the different adverse conditions that you face dealing with so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. But if you don't, that's because, hey, we're relegated to being the poor, the impoverished, the disenfranchised, the marginalized. So, hey, crime and poverty, they have an affinity towards one another, right? Us being relegated to the position of the have-not. Here it is, people look at the so-called white man, woman, and child as if they're non-threatening, as if they're loving. No, they've already inherited everything that their forefather robbed, pillaged, raped, and mutilated our people for. So you don't have to see their horns now because they're at rest. As far as the wealth gap, this nation's wealth, they're hoarding it to the point where they don't have to go out here to eat. They have to steal. They don't have to go out here and compromise their integrity or join into other nations to get support, to get a leg up. Why? Because, hey, they've been put in a privileged position, right? Because a lot of Jake, if you look at the reason why they go and they do these crimes, it relates to us being relegated to the poor, right? Let me bring this out in Jeremiah 42 and 22. But our people don't have compassion for one another. Neither do they have a historical understanding of who they are and why they're here in the first place, right? This is Jeremiah chapter 42 in verse, it might be Isaiah. Let me see if it's in the book of Isaiah. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 22, and it reads, "But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none said deliver. For a spoil, and none said restore it." Right? Let me bring this out one more time. This is Isaiah 42 and 22. It reads, "But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none says deliver it. For a spoil, and none says restore it." Right? But the point is, this is a people robbed and spoiled. Right? Spoiled and robbed. All of the wealth that your forefathers and your foremothers labored tediously over half a millennium to generate, it was robbed from them and given to a whole nother nation as an inheritance. Right? Spoiled. They were promised 40 acres and a mule. Why? So that they can provide for themselves, so that they can establish an economic base, like it tells us not to do in Micah 2 and 10. But have our forefathers, have our people ever been given repair, restitution, support, 40 acres and a mule, free anything? No. You see nations come from around the world, from the Ukraine, Afghanistan. You know, you even have the Japanese who were detained in internment camps, right? But they've all been compensated for the wrong that's been done to their people, right? They just weren't robbed and spoiled, but they were treated as, you know, members of the global family that had sovereign rights, right? But as far as the Lord's people, right? Let me bring this out one more time. But this is the people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. But they are for a prey, and none said deliver. Because you actually have the prison industrial complex where millions of so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans are being housed, being profited off of, being experimented on. But America as a whole is a vast prison, right? And you will find that out if you try to leave here without certain permissions and documentations, right? You'll realize that this is a prison where you have mobility. You can actually travel from West Coast to, you know, the East Coast. But even then, you better have the proper registration. You better have the proper licenses. Don't do like the Moore Science Temple niggas and try to create your own tag and say, well, I need, I'm not, where they say, I'm not driving, I'm traveling. Because driving is commerce. Traveling is, you know, they always pull out these different Moorish Science Temple, Noble Drew Ali talking points before they get their documents confiscated, paper terrorism, and you get thrown into a jail because you try to usurp these court curses. If you are an Israelite, if you are within the confines of Babylon the Great, there's no Black's Law Dictionary, no Moorish science, or no information that you can provide to usurp being obedient and dealing with these curses. Look at Malachi Z. York. Malachi Z. York was a nigger from up north that actually came down south, and he was in Georgia. He built a compound, you know, with plywood pyramids, and I mean, it looked like the damn Giza Strip. It looked like it looked like the Giza Plateau, the Nile Valley. He did it over here in Georgia, and what did the FBI as well as the GBI, what did they do? They went with construction equipment and toppled over those so-called pyramids. Because Jake, in his heart of hearts, he knows that, hey, we are the children of God, but Jake don't want to serve out these punishments. Jake want to find rest on this side.